Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome, everybody, to episode 79 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I'm your host, Johnny Cullen, joined alongside Dwayne Steinell as always. We are pleased to be joined by a second-time guest, friend of the program, and all-around legend, Olaf Kolzig, Oli the Goalie. Thank you for being here, brother.
Always a pleasure, guys. And I think it should be called Three Goalies, One Mic.
Right? That's my bad. I'll throw some money in the fine jar for that one.
Yeah. I mean,
unless you guys are still playing. I know I'm retired, so I can't really consider myself a goalie anymore. But
I'm most definitely retired, but as a goalie coach, I guess I still. And when me and Dwayne fill in some men's league, I know Dwayne's a men's league starter. I'm a fill-in guy due to some lower body injuries that will never.
I can relate to that.
So, Three Goalies, One Mic has a nice ring to it. We were lucky enough to get you back on, Oli, back in the very beginning of the show. I still remember the episode. It stands out to me. It was electric. We had a lot of fun. So very, very pleased and lucky to have you back on. Obviously, you're still with the Caps, and they're on, quite a streak here, playing some great hockey, getting some great goaltending from Samsonov, but sitting atop the Eastern Conference at 38 points, tied there with a couple teams in Florida, Tampa, and Toronto, all with 38. But what's it been like so far this year with Washington after, last year kind of felt like things were starting to get back to normal, but, moving along into this year, it seems more like hockey is back, if you want to say it.
Yeah, it is back. I mean, you got the people in the stands, and I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, it was great to play or watch the guys play, but it didn't feel the same without having the fans there. Now that they're back, the atmosphere is back. Obviously the way the Caps are playing this year is very exciting. There's, a lot of question marks going into the season. We still don't have arguably one of our best players in Nick Backstrom back in the lineup yet. Obviously a lot of questions in goal as well. Could Vitek continue to do what he did last year for us? Can Sammy bounce back from a very subpar season? And in all three of those things, the answer is yes. We survived the injury with Nicky. He should be coming back here sometime, I think, before Christmas. And the way that Sammy's played the last couple weeks to a month, he's playing the way that we expected him to play when we drafted him. And Vitek continues to be a solid partner for him.
For sure. I mean, I was surprised. I felt like last year we, as a Sabres, fan podcast, yeah, I remember playing the Caps multiple times early in the season, and that was my first taste of Vitek, and he blew me away. And I had the same reaction seeing Samsonov for the first time, but to have that wealth of youth and youth with very high ceilings, I want to make sure that's understood. That's got to be, fun, but also you also have to deal with the ups and downs of being a young goaltender. I remember you sharing some of that, your own troubles with that, or the way that you dealt with that. But they've come up at the right times, and it feels like this Washington team this year, with losing the guys to COVID and having one of your best players out the whole year, hopefully getting him back, like you mentioned. They found a way to win, and they found a way to win at home too, with a real impressive home record. I think it's 9-1-2, if I believe. I think I'm close, but it just seems like a fun building to play in. And listening to Washington, Pittsburgh, obviously a special matchup. But I was going through some of the comments from like guys like Oshie and John Carlson talk about that rivalry, and it just sounds like a fun rink to be in when those two teams come at it.
I'll tell you what's a lot more fun playing at the Capital One Arena than it does in Pittsburgh. That's for sure. it's always been a big rivalry. Goes back so long. And really we haven't had our share of success against them up until a couple of years ago when we finally beat them to advance to the Stanley Cup. And I think ever since that series win, it's really kind of gotten the monkey off our back, and I think we really look forward to these games more and more during the regular season now that we know that we can beat them. Obviously, you got arguably the two best players of their generation playing against each other, and Ovechkin and Crosby. And it's always two teams that hate each other, a lot like Montreal and Toronto, Philly and Pittsburgh. It's a rivalry, and there's nothing better than two teams that hate each other, and obviously Pittsburgh's got to find their way back into the playoff picture, so they're going to be desperate, and we're going to continue to hopefully to climb the standings and continue to be atop of the league.
Duane, one last note before you jump in. You brought up the word, but so did Oshie, and he mentioned the hatred, and he compared it a lot to what it was like when he was with St. Louis, with their rivalry with Chicago. Oli, when you played, who was it? I know Washington was a newer team. Who were? Well, not a newer team by the time you got there.
I was going to say I'm old, but I'm not that old.
I know. I
played for them in the 90s, not in the 70s.
Expansions. Who was the hatred then? Was it still the Penguins? Did you guys have that rivalry back then, or who was it for you that really got you guys going during your stretch there?
Yeah, it was any team from Pennsylvania, both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. It was. We hated Pittsburgh. Philly was they were just hard. They were tough.
Well,
it was a tough team to play against.
Ross and the Legion of Boom.
Legion of Boom, and man, they had very, very good teams. Obviously, you had Hexy in that, who was an idol that I really idolized growing up, and then you play in Philly, and in Philly, you want to be the goaltender playing. You don't want to be the goaltender sitting on the bench, because nothing worse than dealing with those Philly fans while you're sitting there watching the game.
Wait, you don't like beer being poured down the back of your neck when you're not paying
attention? Well, the beer being poured down on you is the least of the problems. It's the things they say to you. It is, ruthless, and it just they do their homework, they do their research, like they're prepared when we show up to the rink, and it kind of blows you away with what they know.
They find out about all your insecurities and they use it against you, even if you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I played there before social media became anything, so my stuff was a little more hidden. But nowadays, it's not fun.
It's crazy. I got my first taste of it. Like, social media was just evolving, but I remember when some kid from Brampton Battalion skated by my crease and mentioned my girlfriend's name. So at the time, I probably had like a MySpace or a Facebook, but just doing homework on the chirps. I think that's when it's the fans doing it too. We've all known Philly's a tough place to play, but that's funny.
But we hated the Penguins. Just hated them.
I've always said that, growing up watching, like you said earlier, the rivalry between, Ovi and Crosby, that was like watching them two play each other constantly, being in that division. It was like, if you're a baseball fan, it's like always watching like Sosa versus McGuire. McGuire. And that's what kind of like, I want to transition to that is, how impressive is this start at 36 years old? What Alex Ovechkin is doing right now at his age, the guy is just an absolute, powerhouse. And the rate he's scoring at his age, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be slowing down at all anytime soon. He doesn't have Backstrom right now. It's just going to get better when Backstrom gets.
Well, and that's the most impressive thing is he's doing it without his sidekick. It's really incredible to watch when you think about it. He, what is he, 144? He's at 750 right now. Mm-hmm. He's 144 goals away, and he's got 4 years left on his contract. He's got half a season left. He's scoring at a fantastic pace. Mm-hmm. It truly is great to watch. But you know what? Obviously, we get to see behind the scenes stuff, and at training camp you could tell that Ovi Ovi has taken this pursuit serious. He really got in good shape this summer. I think he's cutting a few things out of his diet, and he's sticking to it. And I think he's a man on a mission. A record that everybody thought would never be broken, especially in today's game, it has a legit possibility. I mean, knock on wood, the guy stays relatively healthy, which he has in his pretty much his whole career. He could be, 4 years from now, you might have to wheel him out in a walker or get two guys from the bench to just place him in that spot on the power play. But that shot's never going to go away. So if you have somebody that can feed him the puck, he's still going to get his goals on the power play. So we're watching history in the making.
What surprised me, and Duane brought up something earlier, and I'll let him finish that thought with it. With the season's missed point, but what's amazed me, and you touched on it, Oli, is that he's been able to have one of his best starts to his seasons, not only at this age, but without his running mate. Not getting those, I don't want to call them favorable matchups, because obviously you're gonna coaches are gonna match up against Ovechkin as much as they can, but without his running mate, and Backstrom, who he's had to maybe, I don't want to say take some of the defensive pressure away. There's always going to be that for Ovi, but to see him step up his defensive game, like the goal he's scoring in non-traditional ways at this age, and to see him continue to get better it's fun for me. I'm purely in the camp of, I hope he breaks that record. And to Duane's point, I know me and you were talking about it before. I'll let you take it from there, Duane. I just wonder really where he would be at if he had those 2.5 seasons, like you mentioned, Duane.
He'd be breaking it this year. Without a doubt, he'd be breaking it this year.
I mean, you could you could make an argument that he might be able to reach 1,000 goals.
I just said this right before you came on with I was like, he's going to hit 1,000 goals.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of games he's missed, I mean, it obviously is a stretch, but you just never know. And he's done this in in 300 less games than Gretzky. So even if he doesn't, for whatever reason, break the record, he's still going to go down, I think, as the greatest goal scorer in NHL history, just based on the the games he's played and the goals he's gotten.
And me and Cully were talking about before we brought you on is one of the things too is you were there kind of during that transition in goaltending where we went from the older style, heavier equipment to the newer style, when Reebok first kind of started getting into the game and the equipment got so much lighter and the equipment started to become more advanced. What are your thoughts on that when you think of that previous generation to this previous generation? Like, how much more impressive does it make? I know there's rule changes, no 2-line pass, the game's a lot faster. But in my opinion, I mean, and this is nothing against the great one, there are a lot of players early in his career he didn't get to face because Russians and Europeans and the Czechs weren't allowed to play here yet. There's a good probably solid 5 to 10 years where he didn't play against some of the best players in the world. Not saying that he wouldn't have been able to excel against those guys, but he didn't get to face some of the better goaltenders from that particular generation. And just to see what Ovechkin's doing against the goalies and how good they are today and the rate he scored at, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes to make those arguments. I mean, you look at it with Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, and it's people try to say who's the GOAT and whatever, and you look at the competition that Tiger has compared to competition that Jack has, the equipment that Jack had compared to what Tiger's using. I mean, it's hard to say because if you're a great player and you're doing the best you can with what you've got, and you look at I think Gretzky went to his aluminum stick halfway through his career. These guys are using composite sticks where the pucks are they're going 20 miles an hour faster. Training is different. These guys are stronger, bigger. In the era that Gretzky was playing, there was so much clutching and grabbing. Those rules changed right around when Ovi came into the league. So he didn't have to deal with skating through mud and getting hooked, held and tied up all the time. So there are a lot of things that benefited Ovi, but at the same time, Yeah, the goaltenders have evolved. The position, the guys are more athletic. They're bigger. They're faster. And but sometimes power surpasses that, and that's what Ovi has. And I'm never going to ever argue with what Wayne Gretzky's done. I mean, he's
how can you?
He's legendary. But again, Ovi's just one of those once in a lifetime players, and at some point records are meant to be broken. As unrealistic as they are sometimes, this is the type of player that can do that. Unfortunately, Tiger got hurt, or I think he would have broke Jack's record.
He's got a lot of injuries.
Yeah, so there's always somebody that comes down the pipe that is just a special person, and that's what Ovi is right now.
I was thrilled for him to get his cup to end that narrative, but I just like thinking about it from like a goalie perspective. He's always going to be dangerous on the power play. You mentioned that, but I agree with your line. There's the people that out there that want to throw the asterisks out there that, it was a different game. You can only play against the players they throw out against you, right? You don't get to choose which era you play in. And so for those arguing about that, that opinion can be thrown out the window for me. I just think it's the consistency at what he's been able to score. But not only that, since he's came into the league, Alex Ovechkin has been the type of player that every single shift, something big happens, whether it's a hit, a missed hit, a shot that goes in or misses the net. He's been that way since he's came into the league, and he's constantly been compared to Crosby, like you guys had brought up, and they play such different games, right? And I
totally.
think that, and I think Sid stole some of the spotlight, winning earlier, winning more, but it's a team game. The individual accolades and the individual accomplishments and just what Ovi's been able to do in this era of the NHL, and to live as a goal scorer who goes about it meticulously, you have to believe, to see the advancement and the change in goaltending and the way that we get cross crease on a power play pass, right? Like, for him to adapt to that, I think, you can throw gas on the fire that way too, is that he's found a way to score in different eras, in different ways, and evolve his game. And like you mentioned, he should be coming down to, the Tom Brady argument, like the dinosaur ages of his career. I just think that the way he plays, it doesn't look like he's slowing down. And for me, you have to, I think, and I would love to see him break the record in the coming years.
Yep.
I agree. Like you just brought it up, but the one thing that Gretzky didn't bring that Ovi brings is the physicality. I think there was a stat that came out. Is he the only player that's got scored more than 750 goals or 700 goals and has 3,000 hits? I think I read that somewhere a week ago or whatever. But I mean, just think about that. The wear and tear that does to your body, and he's still a force every night. And that argument that the people say, like you said, you can only do with what you're given, and he's excelling right now, just like the great one did back in the day. That they're two elite players that there's different arguments. Yes, Crosby and Ovi are two different players. Ovi's a bull. He just overpowers you, both with his body and a shot. And Sid has got he's got a brain like no other. He's got great hands. He's one of those guys that makes the other guys on the ice better because he gets them the puck. Where Ovi is just pure goal scorer, pure power, just a beast on the ice.
And I think a lot of people forget in comparing the two, they play two different positions, right? Like Ovechkin's not a center. Like we can't fault him for being like this matchup guy when that's not, he's a left winger, right? So he
could play both. He could play both wings.
Right. But like you get my point there. I think a lot of people when looking at it on the surface don't realize like oh, well, Crosby's such a more complete player. Well, yeah, well, he's also a center, and he's also going to be involved lower in the defensive zone in that sense, right? Before we get to the, I know Duane wanted to talk about the matchup tomorrow night coming up, but I wanted to ask you about Zach Fukali. I was in my last year in the Ontario League when he was, having some success in the Quebec Major Junior League. And I know he went on to play for the World Junior team after. Having him come up and get his first win, I think this year, right, was a shutout. Having to see him who's, been in the minors, dealt with adversity, to see him come up and just get that first win and after working, so hard. Was that a cool moment?
Fantastic moment. Zach is such a good guy, such an upbeat person. It's so hard not to cheer for him. And he was a prime example of perseverance. High draft pick. It just didn't work out in Montreal. And for a goalie, Montreal, it's tough to make it work out in Montreal.
We've seen that before.
I know Carey Price personally, and it's funny. Ironic. I said it the day that he announced that he was checking himself in. I said, there's probably not a better person that's suited for Montreal with his demeanor and the way he goes about business. And it just goes to show that we don't know what's going on inside the person. I mean, on the outside, he looks calm and nothing phases him, but obviously there was something that, he needed a break, and Montreal can do that for you. And unfortunately, that's where Zach ended up going, especially a French kid going to Montreal. It just didn't work out. And sometimes players just need a fresh start. And it was just a great fit for us in Washington. Obviously started in Hershey, really endeared himself to the players last year. Great work
last year, right? Like 9.
Yeah, great numbers. We re-signed him.
35 save percentage, really played well.
Yeah, him and Phoenix Copley are a great duo down here. And then for him, he had a great training camp this year too. So if there was going to be any kind of, if Sammy continued to play the way he did last year, I don't think there was any hesitation that Zach was going to go in. And then there just happened to be a time that he could go in. He got the start. I think at that time our team needed a little bit of a spark themselves in that position. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he gets the shutout and then all of a sudden Sammy's game takes off. Maybe that's a little pressure, and Sammy's responded well. But again, for Zach Fukali, I think it's for any young hockey player, it's a great lesson in perseverance. You keep your goals in mind and just keep going until you achieve them.
I appreciate you giving us that answer. I don't know him personally, only know what I saw him go through, and to see him finally get out there and then get a shutout in his debut. Really happy for the kid. I don't even know. But I've heard nothing but good things about him, like you just mentioned. Duane, last question I'll ask, and then you can take it over to the Sabres and what we're going to talk about. There was an interesting case being presented about Doug Armstrong building the Canadian roster if they do go, after everything that's going on and Bettman's statements today, for Tom Wilson, and could he be one of the last forwards in? I had the unfortunateness of playing against him. He was in Plymouth while I was in Windsor, and he was right on top of me a lot. It made my life a living hell, with, screening me with guys like Seguin and Raquel shooting the pucks. But a complete competitor, somebody I have tremendous amount of respect for. As much as we went at it on the ice, as we passed each other in the hallway, it was always handshakes and nothing but respect. So somebody that, I know a lot of people hate his guts, but I think they'd be jumping at joy to have them on his team. Just wondered your thoughts on is he a candidate for Team Canada? And do you think that's something that could come to fruition if they do indeed end up going?
Well, personally, I don't know if he is a candidate. I don't know what they're thinking as far as the kind of team they want to pick. But I would have Tom Wilson on my team any day of the week. He's one of those polarizing figures. A lot like Dale Hunter, a guy that you love to have on your team.
You hate to play against him.
Hate to play against, and the fans just love giving it to him. They think he's a dirty player, and I don't think it could be any further from the truth. Yeah, he's putting himself in some bad situations. He's a physical specimen that can skate fast, and unfortunately, some of the players have just they've been on the receiving end of it. And I'm sure there's been a couple times where Tom's like, yeah, I probably could have done this different or done that different.
When you play the game at that high of a speed, man, sometimes those decisions are tough to make in the moment.
It's easy to break things down on a frame by frame slow-mo basis, but like you said, the game is so fast and things change so quickly. It's tough to turn your brain, to make your brain say, oh wait, stop or back off. It's some of those unfortunate things as you see in the NFL all the time when guys trip and they'll get a helmet to helmet, or the quarterback just lets go of the ball and gets hit and they call roughing the passer. It's unfortunate, and that's the way they referee and officiate the games now.
It's unfortunate. Yeah. I love Tom Wilson in his game. Again, like you said, he's the player. He's a player you hate to play against. You hate him with everything within you. But the second he's on your team, he's your best friend. You know what I mean? You're going to walk down a dark alley with Tom Wilson 7 nights every week, out every week. He's just that type of guy. And, I would kill to have him in blue and gold here in Buffalo.
Well, I guarantee you that if Sidney Crosby played with him on Team Canada, not knowing what Sid thinks about him, but just based on the history with Pittsburgh, it's probably not really good. But playing with him, he'd probably get a different opinion about Tom Wilson.
100%. 100%. And knowing the competitor that Sid is, I think it would happen. I think I hope it would. Like, it would be like a fresh start, like walking in that room. Hey, we have one goal to win this gold. Let's go after it, to see what the two of them could do together, right? After being, opposing forces for so long, right? I just think that Tom Wilson brings something unique to the game. And that's why he's such a polarizing figure. I knowing him personally, haven't spoken to him in years, but I think he gets a lot of unjust hate on social media, but that can be said across the land for any sport and a lot of athletes by opposing fan bases. But,
what would be interesting to see is Team Canada playing Russian and having Tom against Ovi and see
that would be
what is it? Immovable force falls first. Yeah.
What meeting? Which one meeting?
Whenever I think of Ovi in the Olympics, how do you not think of that open ice hit on Jágr? You know what I mean? He just had him lined up. One of the all-time, another guy again who lost a lot of his prime years when he went to go play in the KHL. You always think, what could have been. Is Ovechkin chasing Jágr, not Gretzky right now? You never know. But
I played with Jags. Ovi has a different drive. I think Yags really got to appreciate the NHL after he went over to the KHL. He's like, you know what? I miss that league. I'm going to go back. And when he did come back, he really dedicated himself. He was always one of the hardest working guys his second time around. And I think had he applied that, the first time around, you're right. We might be talking different, but I think two different personalities and Ovi's just, he's a lot more driven.
Yeah, I used to say that too. You noticed a difference in the player when he came back from the KHL in terms of not just what he did on the ice, everything, how he was committed off the ice. You hear
the stories about him being at the
after
rink.
Games.
Yeah, like
still working
midnight.
Yeah, I'd be there like till midnight.
Yeah, and then how the trainers would just ended up giving him the keys because they didn't want to wait. The laundry would be long finished by then. They wanted to go home. And he'd be out there with the ankle weights on. I remember hearing those stories. Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up, Duane and Oli. Like, they're two different people. I think when comparing one to another, and I know that sports media lives off this, like the LeBron MJ thing, like they're different players, right? Everybody's unique in their own way. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. If Jágr had a different mentality, if he had Ovi's mentality coming in, where would he be? Obviously, Jágr's great in his own right, not taking anything away from him. But to see Ovi's sustained success individually and finally getting that cup, I think it's going to be fun to see and hope he can stay injury-free. Because, we saw him come into Buffalo, and I think he had a 4-point night with 2 goals. And like I said, getting them in different ways than he has in the past. So Really, really fun to see the next couple years.
Don't take it personal. He kills everybody he plays against.
Yeah, I've learned long ago not to take anything that man does. When number 8's on the ice against a team I'm rooting for, I know that something good or bad for us is bound to happen. But Duane, I know that you wanted to ask about the upcoming matchup. You've seen more of the Sabres live than I have due to my coaching commitments. So I'll sauce it back over to you.
Yeah, just, we have you guys tomorrow night. Obviously, Buffalo is in yet again, post Jack Eichel trade, another rebuild. But, I would think that as a Sabres fan, or even just as your regular hockey fan, you look at the team and the makeup of this team and what we have coming up out of Rochester. There's a lot of excitement with what's going on in the AHL. What's going on at Michigan right now between both Owen Power and goaltender Eric Portillo. A lot to be excited about, even without Jack Eichel being a part of this organization anymore. But obviously there's a huge issue in net. We had Craig Anderson, who you got obviously, I'm assuming got to know last year as he was part of your taxi squad and came in to fill in during the playoffs. Craig is absolutely one of my all-time favorite goaltenders, the past 10 years. I was rooting for him hard when he was with Ottawa on that one cup run, that one playoff run they were on when they eventually lost in the conference finals. And he came in, he played unbelievable for us the first, 10 to 15 games. And unfortunately now he's month to month with an upper body injury. And now it's just an absolute goaltending carousel right now. We're up down to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, our starting goalie in the AHL, who we assume will get sent back after tonight because they assume Malcolm Subban will be back and ready to go tomorrow night. When you look at a team like Buffalo and, where we're at in terms of this rebuild and coming into play against Washington, where do you see Buffalo giving you guys problems, if any at all?
Well, I mean, they'll I'm assuming they're not playing tonight, right?
No, they're playing the Rangers tonight.
Oh, they are. Okay. So I was going to say that would be the one advantage, is that they're waiting for us. But yeah, I mean, the history, Buffalo's always played us tough, regardless of who's in the lineup or the wherever the team is standing. They always seem to play us tough. Not knowing the organization well, obviously I focus more on Washington, and we played Rochester. That was our last game before the COVID breakout. We played in Rochester, and yeah, you're right. They've got some good players down there, and I thought the Finnish kid that you were just talking about, he played fantastic that night, and I think you guys have something with him, but. To me, that's the biggest thing. Is not sure you guys have really had anybody since Ryan Miller. That has been. I know Robin Leonard was there for a bit.
That was the guy that came in through a trade, right? We haven't drafted and developed, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And I think all the great organizations, they either. They trade for a high-end goalie or they develop a great one from within their system. And the one thing that Washington's done, at least the last dozen years is, we've drafted, and they're not necessarily high draft picks. I mean, you look at Braden Holtby was a fifth round draft pick. Philip Grubauer might have been, he was a second rounder. Sammy was a first rounder. Vitek was a second rounder, but we've just managed.
You've hit on over the past.
Well, we've had Michael Neuwirth, we've had Semyon Varlamov, and those are the kids that we've drafted. We signed Phoenix Copley out of college, So some organizations just get it right in that position, and to me that's the biggest thing. Is I think that stability in net for you guys. If the guys in front don't have the confidence, the guys in the net are going to do the job.
Yep.
They're going to play a lot more tentative. They're not going to play as open and as confident as they should be.
Grip their sticks a little tighter, yeah.
Grip their sticks a little tighter. Not quick to jump on the offense. Just maybe a little too conservative in the offensive zone, just in case there's a breakdown. Whatever it is, the goaltending position is. I mean, you saw that with Vegas when they brought in. Everybody was new, but bringing in Marc-Andre Fleury.
Couple clicks on win number 500 too, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't think it could be understated how important that position is.
Yeah, and I think even looking back at some of the past years, maybe the best example would be the lockout the COVID shortened year. I think we were a point out. We were playing Montreal there. I know that wouldn't have been a true playoff, appearance for us because it was expanded, but even then we had below average goaltending. You get maybe one, had we had some more stability, maybe that breaks the playoff drought in one of those years. And it's not something that has become this talking point here and this monkey on our back here in Buffalo, right? Not that one postseason appearance without, winning the cup is what we're looking for. But it has been disappointing to see us not, you look at a guy like Cal Peterson. We drafted him. He chose, because out of college he had that ability, and not faulting his decision. But like a lot of goalies that we've drafted haven't worked out or have worked out elsewhere. And I know it takes time. I was happy to see UPL having success in Rochester. I still think he's a bit away, and I think Kevin Adams.
The injuries scare me.
But he does have talent, right? We see it, when he gets called up. But looking forward for, whether it's Portillo, whether it's UPL, whether it's Devon Levi, all guys that are now having success at the college level, the latter two. I think that's when we'll really start to see a change in Buffalo, giving those young, skilled players that, I don't want to say added security, but that mentality of, hey, we can maybe play a little looser. We can take a chance here or there, knowing that we got this guy back there to bail us out. And we all know that's something that exists in every locker room there is, right?
100%. I don't think there's, you can go down, you go back to, I don't know when, but there's not one Stanley Cup team that hasn't won with an average or subpar goaltender. It's vital. It's difficult. And you're right. Even though it was a lockout or COVID shortened season, just that little milestone of making the playoffs. It's just that you're right. It's not talked about anymore. And when as young guys, they're on social media, they watch TV. I'd say they read the paper, but I don't even know if there's newspapers anymore. So but it's always out there. Someone's always, you have to be very mentally strong to not let that affect you as a player or as an organization. And so, just missing the playoffs that 1 year was crucial. I mean, you make it and then you don't have to talk about it. But there's just something that's, again, I don't know the organization. I don't know the inner workings or anything like that, but the amount of young talent that they've gotten the last few years, they should at least be on the rise. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's happening right now.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a year or two before the Jack Quinns, the Paterkas, the guys that are the Peyton Krebs, and then even the middle stats and the Tage Thompsons and the pieces that we have up, coming up, Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin. We're not there yet. I think we're closer than some people feel, but I think that also you can cover up, you can have a bad team and mask it to make it look mediocre with great goaltending, right? And vice versa. So I just, it feels like for the first time in a long time, at least in my opinion, that the cupboard drawers are full. Now you have to hit on your draft picks, which the past three general managers and even some of Regere's later picks haven't came to fruition. But you have to draft and develop, and that's been Kevin Adams' plan since he's been brought in. And you see you like to see even at the AHL level, 3 of the top 10 scorers in the league are 3 of your young players. So there is hope. And, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't, talk about, like you guys have, that one of the goalies needs to come up and be the guy. Whether that's somebody we already have in the system or whether that's through trade, like you had mentioned. But just hearing you mention the guys that have come out of Washington in the past 15 years compared to Buffalo at the position of goaltending, it blows my mind. You forget that McNeuwerth and Grubauer were both drafted there, right? And going on. So that's, like you said, it's draft and develop or go out and get a guy. But the Sabres have not had, I'd say, above average goaltending since Ryan Miller. Duane, would you disagree there?
We've had literally, I would say, I lost track of the number. We're on our 5th goalie right now for the season.
I loved Craig Anderson's start.
Dude, he was unbelievable.
You had a relationship with him at all?
Well, unfortunately, no, I don't, because I didn't travel at all last year due to the lockout, due to COVID. So I didn't get a chance to meet him. But again, with a guy like him, he's getting older, and so injuries are going to happen, and unfortunately, it's happened to him. But I know the guys in the locker room really spoke highly of him. So having missing a guy like that not only affects the on ice, but affects the locker room too.
Well, and you saw it like right away here in Buffalo. Ole, like he came out and he gave us a chance to win in games that we didn't have in years prior. And with a young team, it's not maybe you need that timely save, right? For a young team that needs that they haven't established the winning culture yet, right? And you have your new coach in Don Granato, who's done a good job, but to be bailed out by a guy like Craig Anderson that did it early and often, and I think he ended up only maybe with a 4-2-1 record before getting hurt. But I saw the development. I saw with my own eyes. I saw the young team playing above its potential because of above average goaltending. So, like you said, with his age, injuries are going to happen. That's just the reality of it in the position that we chose to play. Hopefully he comes back. It's been week to week, move to month, which I know that can happen with injuries. But it was exciting to see early on and really tough to see because that a guy like that at that age, he really had to have a really full summer of working out. And from all accounts, he really came in. Don Granato, head coach, came out and said right away, he knew from the first day that he showed up and met Anderson that he was ready to go because he was in such great shape. So it's unfortunate to see that he has to deal with this. And it's unfortunate for us too, because we've lost maybe that stability back there that could have helped the Sabres over that problem of consistency that we seem to lack.
Yeah. The other thing I think there needs to be somebody that needs to step up and take that leadership role. And it goes hand in hand. I mean, yeah, obviously the goaltending's huge, big part, but you also need somebody that can hold his teammates accountable, lead by example, and just have a strong presence in that room. And I'm not sure, like I said, I don't know the personnel that well. I'm not sure.
I look at a guy like Alex Tuck.
Yeah. From Vegas, yeah.
It's tough to announce a captain that hasn't played a game for you. I like the idea, Duane. I wanted to ask you, Ole, have you played on a team, like ever a year where you traded the captain or there wasn't a captain? Because that's the situation right now. They have some A's. I'm sure there's a leadership group, but to not have one captain, has that ever been an issue with you? Did you ever have that when you were playing or coaching?
Yeah, no, not in the NHL. We have, it's funny, my junior team right now in Tri-Cities, we have that where we haven't decided on a captain yet because I think it's an important call. Like you truly need the right person. You can't just give the guy the letter and hope it works out. So if they don't feel that there's somebody in there right now that can truly lead, because when you name a captain, you expect that guy to be there a long time, and he's going to be the voice of that locker room and face of your franchise, and so it's not something that should just be tossed around lightly and just given to anybody. They obviously feel that there's not anybody there yet right now that's ready for that role.
People like to talk about Dylan Cousins a lot. He's I think he's 19, maybe 20 now. But I mean, I'm not saying you can't name a kid that's that young a captain. I know he's stepped up a lot in certain situations and stuck up.
Why not? They named Jack Eichel. They named Jack Eichel.
Well, I'm not against it. I'm not against it, but I look at a guy like Alex Tuch, who is ingrained already in the city. He grew up a huge Sabres fan. He literally got behind a podium after the Jack Eichel trade and said, "It is my dream to play for this team." Mind you, this team has finished in the cellar for 5 years in a row. So for a guy like that to come from a team like Vegas, who's cup contending, just made this huge trade for Jack Eichel, and you're part of that deal going the other way. You're going from best to worst to get on a podium with that big of a smile on your face and say, "This is what I was born to do." That for me, that just screams, put a C on this guy and let him take the reins and let him show these kids what it takes to win, and on and off the ice, and what it takes to be a real leader. And eventually maybe a Dylan Cousins could transition to that role of captain eventually down the road.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. Obviously the Sabres have meant a lot to him when he was growing up, and that's exactly what you want to hear when you trade for a player. But you still have to see what he brings inside the locker room.
That's true.
And again, I don't know Alex Tuch as a person. I know he's a good player, and
he's got to win over that locker room.
He's got to win over the coaches. He's got to win over the locker room. He's got to do the right things day in and day out on the ice. And just obviously, like you said, it remains to be seen. But if he backs up what he said on the podium and on the ice and in the locker room, then it sounds like he would be a logical choice for that. But Cousins, I think, probably needs another couple of years. We gave Ovi the captaincy, I want to say his third year when he was in Wash. It wasn't the right time to give it to him. Obviously, he was the face of the franchise. There's still a lot of things that Ovi needed to learn, and needed to be a little bit more mature. But I mean, you've seen the true Ovi come to fruition here in 2018 when we won the Cup, and the things that he did in that playoff run that showed that he is the true captain. And so sometimes the young guys just aren't ready. Doesn't mean they're not going to be the captain, but you don't want to put that pressure on those guys too early.
I honestly, watching him celebrate that whole summer, Oli, that was just like, it was like, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Like,
it was just pure joy. That's all it was.
Like every time the guy scores, you see it in his face.
Well, and then the Blues tried to replicate that the next year, and it just didn't come come across the same way.
It was special. I was rooting for
Summer
him.
Of Ovi.
Still to this day, some unreal pictures. They should make one of those of Ovi during the celebration as a statue. I feel like once he does retire, whenever that is. Changing.
Which one? The one where he's in the fountain in his underwear?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They should put the statue in the fountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, or do the keg stand. So instead of having the statue where the athlete's actually on his feet, he's doing a handstand on the trophy. That would actually be a good one too.
It'd be one of a kind. So I'm sure it would draw a crowd, no doubt. I would love to see it right there in front of the rink. That'd be a fun little meeting spot. Pregame,
yeah, for sure.
Pregame sodas. Wanted to switch gears really quick. You had the chance to play for the German Olympic team in Nagano in '98, and then I think again in Turn in '06, correct?
And I should have played in Salt Lake too,
but
I got hurt 2 days before the tournament started, so I missed that, unfortunately.
So being able to represent Germany and play in international best on best hockey is something that very few, even of the best hockey players in the world, get to do. I don't know if you listened to Bettman's comments today. They still are willing to, they were murky on it, but they said, listen, we agreed and in the PA when we signed the CBA that we were going to help the players go. Ultimately, if the players deem that they don't want to go and we don't have another COVID stoppage, we're going to try to make it work. What's the feeling around I'm sure everybody has their own feelings, with a guy like Leonard coming out and announcing that he's not going for for psychological reasons, and I mean maybe we'll see more players start to do that. But do you think the Olympics will happen at this point? Just personally, what's your feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it's gonna happen unless there's a massive, upturn in COVID cases, and it can't. It's just too big an event to not have happen.
I don't know if anyone's stopping Ovi from going. I remember how adamant he was about going last time.
And I'm actually surprised he didn't pick up his gear and end up going that year to South Korea. But no, there's just something. When I look back at my career, those 2 Olympic appearances were 2 of my most cherished moments. Even though I didn't grow up in Germany, I had German parents, and pretty much my entire family was living in Germany. So it wasn't just a sense of pride for me; it was a sense of pride for my whole family. And it truly is one of those special moments. And if I would highly recommend to any athlete, if they get the opportunity, that they should take it. Obviously, China is a different animal with all the political things and the human rights things, and people have to. They have to stick up to what they believe in. And if they think that going there isn't right, it goes against their beliefs, then all the power to them. If some guys think it's better for their mental health to not go, then by all means, you need to stay home. I mean, mental health the last 10 years has become so prevalent. It's such an important subject you praise guys like Robin Leonard to be so open about it, but it's important that people know about it, because it is, especially now, what we've gone through for 18 months with COVID. I've got 3 teenage kids, and to see them, doing the online learning and not being in the classroom, it had a huge toll on their mental state. And so, again, to every athlete, it's up to them, but if all things being equal, I'd highly recommend to go to the Olympics and experience it. There's nothing like it.
I hope it comes down to an individual decision. Like, guys that want to go, guys that don't want to go, don't go. And that way, I feel like that then the decision's still in the player's hands, right? Then you don't have guys that this might be their only opportunity being told by the governing organization, the NHL, or whoever it may be, the Player Association, being told no. I hope it happens. I miss seeing best on best at the Olympics. And I honestly, going back to that comment about Ovi trying to go to the last ones, I remember how intense that got, and that being in the news, and I would have loved to see him, and pick up his gear and go and represent his country, because I think that's, like you said, goes back to not just representing your nation, but the pride you feel with your family. I didn't get to do it at an Olympic level, but to do it at the Ivan Hlinka tournament was something that I'll always hold near and dear, right? To put on those colors for the first time is a moment you don't ever forget.
And unfortunately, Ovi missed out on a gold medal.
Yeah. I really wish he would have went, man, because I would have loved to see him.
Oh my God, that was so. Yeah, but they were so close. I mean, it was, and I believe me, don't get me wrong, I didn't expect Germany to go to the finals, but I thought that if any country could benefit from the NHL not going, it would be Germany, because we only have a handful of NHL guys anywhere. So the core of our national team is usually all guys that play in the DEL. So, where teams like Sweden and Canada, US, Czechs, they were 90%, 95% NHL players. So I thought we had a good chance of really finishing high. I didn't think we were 2 minutes away from winning a gold medal, but that was just awesome to see. And the country they went nuts, even though we won silver. It's just something that it'd be like Canada winning gold in soccer. It was that kind of a moment.
I'm good friends, and I'm former teammates with Tom Kuhnackel. He won a cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's in the Islanders system, but he's represented Germany on the national level. And to just go back and forth with him about how much of a huge moment that was at the time, and have it be that close, it was cool to hear from his perspective. He represented Germany most recently at the World Championships this past year. So just good guy, awesome former friend and teammate, somebody I'll always root for. But that would have been a really special thing. It still is a special run at the Olympics. A silver medal is nothing to scoff at, and it's definitely something that deserves to be recognized. I hope that we get to see Olympic hockey. I think you touched on it too. It's adding in where it's being held and all of the things surrounding what is happening over there in that part of the world.
But I also don't think that I don't think governments or anybody should punish the athletes.
No,
100%.
For what's going on there. I mean, these guys, these athletes train their whole life, and it's not their fault that China got picked to be a venue site. So when they have boycotts and then don't allow the athletes to go, I think it's the worst thing they can do. I don't really know what a diplomatic boycott entails, but I'm glad the U.S. did that, and instead of keeping the athletes back. But
I was just about to say diplomatic boycott. Stand your ground to do that, but don't hold out on the athletes. Echoes my thoughts 100%.
I agree. I also hope that at some point too, because I think it went so well the first time around. Like, why is it taking so long? I know it may be out of maybe it's an NHLPA thing, or I don't know. The World Cup of Hockey was so much fun. Like, I mean, maybe if the Olympics don't get played for whatever reason, maybe they could bring that back. I don't know, man. That was so much fun to watch. Team North America, Team USA, Canada, the European teams. I personally was a huge fan of that. I hope they find a way to bring that one back.
Yeah, I love that event. I participated in the first one that we did in the new format.
World Cup.
Yeah.
Tournament.
It was great. It was really good. And it's a fine line. These guys, the NHL schedule is such a grind. And then you add another 3 weeks to the star players. That it's a fine balance. So I don't know. It's such a good event, but you also got to take the players' health into account. I'm sure the organizations don't like seeing their high-end players be put at risk when it's not for the organization's sake, but for something else. So again, that's what the bigwigs in New York and Toronto need to figure out, because it truly was a great event. Team North America with those young stars, and that was exciting to see.
That overtime against Sweden, I still think if an alien came down to Earth and I wanted to best explain to him why I think hockey's the best game in the world, the one clip I'm showing him is that stretch of 3-on-3 between Sweden and North American young guns. Like, that to me was one of the coolest moments in all of hockey. We should do that more. Duane, I think it would be great to go like opposite like every 2 years, but I just know how much planning that takes. To hear the commissioner answer questions on behalf of all the owners about how much revenue has been lost. I think it was somewhere that first COVID shortened year, it was $1 billion. Last year, $2 to $3 billion. Like, those, we're talking big numbers for a sport that gets a lot of if it's revenue from the gate. I know that they're doing things inside the CBA to help with that, but again, going like what Oli said, I think it's the insurance, right? Like, the CBA has to take out insurance on the loss that they get if their players get injured while playing over there. And
that's part of it, yeah.
Part of that. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, like you said, the big wigs. But I hope that the players do get their personal choice to go. I hope it's a great event. I hope just being American, I'd love to see an American US Canada final. But to also see Ovi get a gold medal would be fun too. That's the best part of best on best Olympic hockey. I think it's a better we're better sport in total for having that kind of event.
I agree, but I'd also like to see the Olympics on this side of the world what we have, we've had Sochi, we've had South Korea, now we've had China.
Yep.
I mean, time zone change and everything.
Yeah,
It's just been,
it's so difficult.
yeah, it's brutal.
It's
So
difficult.
it'd be nice to have it come back at least to, Western Europe or back over to North America.
Well, look at how special Vancouver was, right? Like,
yeah,
just having it. I know that's a Canadian city, obviously, and them winning there, but it's just like all the stars lined up, right? I know you didn't get to participate in Salt Lake City, but that was that had some special moments right there, right? So I definitely agree with you. Something on the this side of
the planet.
The planet. I was going to say hemisphere, but I was going to be way off. Too many pucks to the head for this guy. Duane, I don't have anything else. I need to wrap up here in a minute to get to practice. Oli, I'm big fan. Obviously love whenever we get the chance to have you on. I know the fans love it. Really appreciate everything you do. Best of luck from me to you and your future endeavors, and also with the organization. I know, Duane, you wanted to mention that.
Yep. Yeah. I know you had the Carson Kolzig Foundation. I know you with that deals a lot with children with autism. Is there anything else you'd like to promote on top of that, Oli?
No, that's the one that's near and dear to my heart. Autism obviously is a disorder that's affecting a lot of kids. One in 60 now, I believe, is the number. So the more we get the word out, the quicker we get the interventions for these kids, the better it is for their long-term health.
Couldn't agree with you more. I know I know I work not with within where I actually work my company, but I work around individuals, both mostly adults that deal with autism. And you know what, regardless of how you feel, like what you feel about the their condition, they are some of the most nicest, most special individuals you will ever meet in the world, man. There's one guy that I work with in one of my accounts at work, and he's a huge hockey fan, and he comes up to me every time he sees me, he lights up, and that's all he wants to do is talk about the Sabres, wants to talk about hockey, he wants to talk about the Bills. The kid's an absolute beauty, and I love talking to him about hockey. It's just, nicest individual you will ever meet.
Yeah, they're special people. They really are. They what they lack in sometimes an emotion and an affection, they make up for in other areas. And just speaking, obviously, on a personal level about my son, he's going to turn 21 in January, and just some of the accomplishments he's made here the last 5-6 years. He's 2 months away from graduating. He's getting his high school degree. He's talking about going to college, and these are things back when he was first diagnosed that we didn't think were possible, but because we were guided in the right direction and we got the proper intervention, and he's really been able, his course in life has really been going on an upward trend, and again, the milestones they accomplish are just that much more special, because you never, as a parent, that when you hear that news that you have an autistic child, that you just don't think is achievable.
That's incredible. Oli, I really mean this when I say it. I'm a father of two beautiful baby girls. I can't call them baby girls anymore. They're one starting kindergarten this year and the other one's in pre-K, but to know, and even in that lead up to it, when you're getting the test to see what illnesses can be happen, to have a child born with an affliction like that, and to see him have the success that he's having, and that's such an heartwarming story, and really brings joy to me to hear it. So, and everything that your organization does. So to hear that, I just wanted to share how special it was. That's incredible. Like Duane did in the moment, couple clicks for your son. That Carson, that's awesome. Best of luck to him as he moves on to his next chapter, with secondary education and any milestone that comes next. That's so incredible, and really, really happy for him and what your foundation's been able to do.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Not a problem. And obviously you're co-owners of the Tri-City Americans. And how is that going too?
We've got a bit of we're in a bit of a stretch where we're rebuilding. We know it's going to be a tough season. One of my co-owner, Stu Barnes, actually ex-Buffalo Sabre. Yeah, he's taken on the coaching role this year. So
Wow.
he was pro scout for Seattle. Helped get them through their expansion draft, and then we brought him in as the head coach now. So. And I've just seeing him on a day-to-day basis firsthand. He's been fantastic with the kids. I think we're still a young team, but I think in the next 2 or 3 years we're going to be back to where we were 4 or 5 years ago.
As somebody that has been coached by a former Sabre at the major junior level with Bobby Bugner, I'm excited for those kids that'll get to play for Tri-City. Stu, just hearing Duane yell Stu in the memories of Rick Generet's calls for Stu Barnes. He was one of my personal favorites when I was a little kid. So that's really cool. I'm thankful. Like, those kids are gonna love it. They're gonna, and I'm sure Stu's gonna thrive. Best of luck as you guys start to build up and make your run, hopefully to the top of the mountain. Such a storied organization, with a lot of success, and it's what's that like? I guess my last question with Seattle and the Kraken coming in, and obviously you guys have been there forever. What's it like now having an NHL market there? Is it drawn attention to what you guys are doing? Is it taken away from what you do? Is it kind of working?
No, I think it's really helped. I mean, we'll get a better sense of it next year once all these. We're dealing with COVID mandates, vaccination mandates to get in our building. So I think once all that stuff kind of smooths over, we'll get a true sense to see how big of an impact the Kraken have. But the excitement, and we're 3.5 hours from Seattle, so the excitement that's in our area is huge. The Kraken have committed themselves to working with all the teams in the U.S. division of the Western League, and the response has been great. So, we look forward to a long relationship with the Kraken. I mean, it's great for our area.
That's awesome. Really cool to hear. Love to see the NHL grow. I remember even when I was young, I loved the Mighty Ducks. Paul Kariya was my favorite player. My mom and dad still tell me to this day that, and they love to remind my kids now, that I would just be downstairs by myself announcing that I was on a line with Kariya and Solani, just commentating my own little mini stick games.
Me, it was always Patty and Mogilny for me.
Yeah, but like to see then, like when the Ducks had that success and to see hockey kind of explode in the West Coast, and I know the Gretzky trade had a lot to do with it. There was teams in LA before, but then, as I started to get older, started to see kids at festival, the top 200 from Anaheim, from Southern California, and now to see some of them breaking in with the national development team and being high picks. It'll be cool to see more and more Northwestern, Seattle, Northwest United States, Seattle region area kids get into hockey that weren't already. So that'll be really cool, and best of luck to you and the Tri-City Americans going forward.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Oli. And hopefully, maybe at some point, if I can get myself a Kolzig jersey, maybe we can replace that WA one back there.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's an empty space right down there below that I noticed.
If you got one laying around,
Hey,
I'm glad
the WA one's mine. I'll take back the WA one if Duane gets a Kolzig one, and I'll add it to my collection, because who's this fucking Cullen guy?
Yeah. Hey, listen, Oli, if you got one laying around, man, I'll trade you a 2 goalies 1 Mike shirt.
I'll have to go in the storage unit and see what I can dig up.
All right, we'll talk shop about that later. But thanks again, Oli, for coming on with us. I really do appreciate it. Friend of the program, an absolute wagon. I hope we can have you on again at some point.
Yeah, anytime, guys. I enjoy doing this stuff.
Thank you so much for episode for Duane, for Oli, for all of us here at 2 Goalies 1 Mike. Looking forward to a great matchup tomorrow night with the Caps.
3 goalies 1 Mike.
3 goalies 1 Mike.
Oh, he said
that's right. That's an extra 10 in the fine
Get
jar.
your shit together, Cully. Get it together, man. Tighten it up.
It's going to be a fine day for me today.
But now we have to get him a shirt.
thanks again for coming on. For all those at 3 Goalies, 1 Mike, Wayne, Oli, and myself, hope you all enjoyed episode 79, and looking forward to a great Sabres-Capitals matchup. Thanks again, and have a great evening.
See you guys later.
Take care, guys.
See you.